But it's been about 500 years since I'm sat down in front of this camera. Or at least it's felt like that. You know, I was content to stay home. I was content to stay in my bed. I was content to stay home playing video games, doing whatever I wanted to. But I could not walk down the street without somebody asking me, when are you and Dwayne bringing back the show? When's it coming? What's going on? To the point where me and my dad were walking down the street the other day, and someone said, hey, get in there. And my dad waved, and the guy said, oh, Craig, I actually meant Trey, but you're great too. And I was like, hey. But he then asked me, when you guys bringing back the show? Because a lot's been going on. Not much of it good. Stevie Wonder can see we're not in the best situation right now. So I felt that it would be remiss of me to not say something. Because, I mean, let's be real, it's in my nature to talk shit on the internet. So I sat down and had a long conversation with Dwayne. He has decided that he will not be joining us, not for anything personal. We are still business partners. We still run Suburbia Productions together. I don't want anybody to think in any way, shape, or form that this is me pushing Dwayne out, because that's not the case. This was his decision that he sat down and made for himself. Dwayne is doing what Dwayne does best. I'm doing what I do best, which is, like I said, talking shit on the internet. But there's a lot of questions that aren't getting asked. And I've been watching the situation for the last few years. I've been watching, even post-COVID, I've been watching things get progressively worse and worse. Because we had seen that everything was getting more expensive. Groceries were getting more expensive. Rent was getting more expensive. Wi-Fi was getting more expensive. Everything. And then, for some strange magical reason, this giant, massive curveball called COVID came and just dug the grave exponentially deeper. And the question has to be asked, is it too late for us to pull ourselves out of this hole that nature, as well as our governments, not government, I'm not blaming one party, I'm not blaming either party, because if you really want to get technical, the issues that we're facing today stem all the way back from the 70s and the 80s. We just haven't done anything about them. So here we are. Most of us, well, not most of us, but a good bit of us still can't work because of COVID restrictions, because jobs are laying off people, because people just can't afford to do it anymore. Some companies are realizing, oh, well, we don't need full staff. It's cheaper to let a few people go and bump other couple people's pay up. I've seen at least 4 businesses close up shop just in the mall alone. We have all this empty real estate in town. Now, a lot of people can say that's because a lot of places are shifting to working from home, which is great, because I think that one of the few good things to come out of this COVID situation is learning the fact that you don't need to be at work for 40 hours a week. You can work from home. Our whole team, we had an office. And after COVID was done, we went back to the office, and Sam and Devon looked at me and said, look, Bob, yeah, I want to go home. We took everything and we went home. And for the most part, I've noticed that their productivity has gone up. They don't hold regular hours anymore, but as long as I tell them, hey, get this done by tomorrow morning, it's done. And it works. So I'm grateful for that, but that's not enough, because I'm just one small business owner. So we're okay. We're doing fine, because we've lessened the size of the business. Things are working out much better. Everybody's happy working from home. But like I said, I'm just one small business owner. I can't speak for the vast majority of people. Majority of people that I understand are struggling. I know at least 10 girls that have worked in retail that have been either made redundant or have lost their jobs. I know at least 20 people that work for other various corporations that just can't keep their jobs anymore. It seems like the only stable place to work is a grocery store or a essential position. But then that leads to the questions that I haven't seen anybody ask. I've seen Maya Palacio and Trevor Lindsay ask the Premier as well as the Health Minister dozens of questions, and I've seen all of those questions get dodged, ducked, dipped, dived, and dodged 1,000,001 times, like Patches O'Houlihan was throwing wrenches at them. If you don't get that reference, you have terrible taste in movies. I said what I said. Be that as it may, here's the issue. In 2017, the Premier gave a speech about two Bermudas. And I actually kind of liked that speech a little bit because I did understand where he was coming from, but simultaneously, you came into power and then COVID happened, and now what do we have? Two Bermudas. We have one half that is perfectly down with the science. For the record, I'm vaccinated. I can't speak for all of my workers, but I have my vaccine card, okay? Because I trust the science. But I understand other people's abrasiveness. So we have one side that is trusting the science, going to work, getting the safe keys, going out to dinner on Front Street, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have the other half that is reluctant to trust the vaccine because if we're being real, not much information was given. And because not much information was given, as well as the narrative that has been spun by the government, it has just emboldened people's misconceptions. So if you were already on the fence about it, now it's just like, I'm definitely not taking it. But not even taking that into consideration, because I could understand people saying, oh, well, people just need to get vaccinated. It's not that simple. You have to take more things into consideration than just the vaccine, because it's not just about COVID anymore. It's never just been about COVID. You have to ask the question. First of all, okay, the government was giving everybody $1,200 a month. Great, cool. Not everybody could apply for that. I couldn't, but not everybody could. I was all right because I had savings and everything like that. But you've reduced people to not working. You've put people under quarantine several times. And now that's just the cherry on top of this cake of crap that's been building up. For the last 4 years, land taxes come in so that rent is more expensive. Data taxes come in so that Wi-Fi and cellular data is more expensive. We have sugar tax. A lot of people think, oh, it's just on sugar. No, it's not just on sugar. In order to keep sugary products to get sold, the grocery store is not going to make a bottle of Coke $5 because nobody's going to buy it. So what they do is they make that bottle of Coke $2.75 and they make that bottle of water $3 so that it levels everything out. So instead of just increasing the price of one thing, to increase the price on everything. Now, logic would dictate that surely if the government cared about its people, why wouldn't you, for the time being under COVID, kind of lessen some of those taxes a little bit? Last year in March, the Premier declared emergency powers, which everybody in the House of Assembly voted for. Okay, we were all fine with that. You shut down the airport, cool. You shut down schools, cool. You put us all into quarantine, cool. But then we've seen 3 separate quarantines come out and, okay, so maybe the rates have gone down? Have they? Have the rates gone down? Can someone confirm that? This is my issue. People are still getting evicted because those people that lost their jobs during COVID can't get new jobs because the job market has shrunk. Okay, where do we go from here? What do we do? Because we look to our leaders and our leaders aren't answering our questions. I mean, just last week, Jamal Simmons got up there and opposed the Premier, and I have to say, I was extremely impressed and I was extremely proud of you, my boy. Because it showed that it's not just a narrative. This has nothing to do with the PLP. This has nothing to do with the OBA. This is just what seems like one man digging this country deeper. And I hate to single people out. I hate to do so. But it seems like he's making all the decisions. It seems like nobody's being heard. It seems like you're just saying, oh, well, if you got vaccinated, then you'll be able to do this. But yet people are suffering. The same people that voted you in are suffering. The same people that kept you in power for the last 20 years are suffering. Because if you look at these vaccination cases, and I hate to say this, but if you go on Front Street and you see the people with the safe keys, you see the people that are vaccinated, you see all of this stuff, it is majority white people. And I'm not trying to disenfranchise our white viewers. I'm not trying to disenfranchise our black viewers. I'm just showing this is what it looks like. So if you were black and you were already on the fence about getting vaccinated, and let's be real, black people have every single valid reason to not believe in vaccines. You can point to the Tuskegee experiments. You can point to the Henrietta Sacks situation. You can look at so many cases throughout human history where black people have every single reason to not trust vaccines. If you look at stuff, it is easy to fall into certain things like that. So if you understood that this was a misconception that people had, why did we only bring in Pfizer at first? Now, I understand that we bought in other vaccines. I understand, but that was a very limited window. The human body is the most complex organism on the planet, I think. I probably shouldn't have slept during biology class, but high school was a long time ago, so cut me some slack. But still, not everything's going to work for everybody. Surely, if you gave people more options, people would be more open to getting it. Surely, if you explain to people more of the details, they could be like, okay, cool. Because the majority of the excuses that I hear from people that don't want to get vaccinated is there's not enough information. And you know what? I can wholeheartedly understand that because the information wasn't given to us. One of the biggest criticisms of the One Bermuda Alliance by the PLP was that they don't explain anything. They throw 500-page documents at people and say, read it. And I understand that. So I understand why people were upset with the St. Regis idea, and I understand why people were upset about the airport. But the reality is, y'all are doing the exact same thing with the vaccine. Because the information's out there, but you're not presenting it in a way that makes sense to people. You can't throw political, legal, and medical terms at people that don't understand those terms. When the St. Regis opened, I was excited because, you know, that means more tourists in St. George's. And as a St. George's native, I'm extremely excited to see that. But this is the thing. You had that video. Some people were wearing masks, some people weren't. And first of all, that laugh that the premier gave, like, who laughs like that? Like, you know what it sounded like? It sounded like one of those monsters from A Quiet Place, like when they find people and they just yell like that high-pitched scream. But whatever, either way. So you show all this well. You have the premier and the politicians sipping cocktails at St. Regis. Fine. No problem with that. Then you cut to the Revolt Party, or the Raft Up. Whether it was a Raft Up or whether it wasn't a Raft Up is immaterial. But you had a safety event that was approved by the tourism minister, which is the who? Yeah. You had a bunch of supermodels, I guess, and Shaggy performing. Cool. No problem with that. But when we saw it, and we said, wait a minute, we can't leave our houses, but they can come and shake their asses on a boat and get approved? But we can't even leave our houses? Now, I understand that things are loosened up a little now, but see, it sends a message, and it does send a good message. Because it sends a message of do as I say, not as I do, which is something that we have been criticizing these laws for a very long time. Now, this is the thing. Because people were so up in arms about the Revolt Party, they launched an investigation. But why would you launch an investigation? If they followed the safety rules, and if the tourism authority approved it, which we know that they did, or at least we would assume that they did because they knew about it, why would you launch an investigation? It's almost like you did that just to shut us up. But furthermore, what was the point of launching an investigation? What are they going to do? Extradite them back? Oh, hey, well, you were on Instagram, on a boat. You're going to have to go back to Bermuda to go to jail. Why don't we launch an investigation into the guy that left the island with the $800,000? Why don't we launch an investigation on that? But whatever. So this is the thing. Then you tell us, if you come home and we're not vaccinated, You know what? You know what? Before I talk about that, let's go to some weather, cause I've got some things to say, cause y'all roll up on my cousin at 1:30 in the morning with 23 police officers. So I've got some words for that. What? Weather!
Ooh, it is a beautiful day today. Wow. What a beautiful day. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. So before I start talking about this, please understand, I understand that she's my cousin, but please don't think this comes from any point of bias or anything like that. It is simply just me talking about the situation. Mrs. Cannonier showed up to the island and in the public eye said, I'm not going to no hotel, I'm going home. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe she did receive a negative COVID test. Positive or not, you still have to get vaccinated or not, you still have to get a negative COVID test. So she went home, and then 1 o'clock in the morning, a whole squad of police officers rolled up to their house. Now, here's the thing. Y'all went with upwards of 20 officers.
Unnecessary. Continue, sorry.
Hi?
Hi.
The hell are you?
Kara. Co-host. Welcome to our show. 20 officers for one family because they didn't want to quarantine at a hotel and spend how much?
Oh, the cheapest hotel is roughly $3,500.
And the most expensive is 11.
But see, this is the thing, random person who just materialized out of thin air. Here's the question. I asked, shouldn't the hotels lessen their prices? Because included in the hotel price is access to the restaurant, the pool, taxis.
Are you allowed to use all of those
No.
things? So then why is it so expensive? Because they're trying to make money. It's not about health.
Speaking of making money, why haven't we done these saliva testing kits yet? Which are easier, not as invasive, and a bit more accurate.
They like the invasiveness of it.
Is it?
Saliva tests have been used for everything for how many years?
Well, see, I actually spoke to one of the people that represents the saliva test. Mm-hmm. And it would have been cheaper, easier, and more efficient for the government to use it.
So why use those?
It's just uncomfortable though. Like, I had one nurse that was nice about it, and then I had one nurse that made me feel like my nose.
It hurts just thinking about it.
So talk to me about my cousin. What do you think?
I think kudos to her for standing her ground, because there's this quote: if you trade your security for liberties, you end up losing both. And we've lost it. We said okay when they said all the quarantines, okay with everything, and so now they just feel like they can do what the government feels like they can tell us what to do, when to do, where to stand.
But be that as it may, this is my issue. Our lives have been getting harder and harder and harder for the last 20 years, realistically. If you realistically think about it, we have been on the decline for the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. And this is just the cherry on top of the cake. Matter of fact, didn't Kim Swan get stuck in America because of COVID restrictions? I remember seeing a video of him at the airport.
I'm here at the United Airlines, and I am a Bermudian, and I am being denied the right to return home. It's against human rights violations. There are articles that you cannot prevent a person from leaving a country or entering into their own homeland. And a form generated by my government is preventing me from returning home. I'm here with the last passengers on Bermuda, 113.
Because he was online basically saying that he has to pay to enter his own country. Now, here's the thing. Legally, according to the Constitution, you can't prevent people from coming home. Mm-hmm. So them putting a paywall on coming back into Bermuda.
Let's prevent it.
Yeah.
I mean, not if you stand up for yourself, like Sophia or Toto, which obviously do that. You never know. How many ankle bracelets are in working order?
We have enough ankle bracelets.
So do that.
But that's simultaneously, this is what I don't understand. Okay. As somebody that is vaccinated, I understand that it is less likely for me to spread the disease and it's less likely for me to contract the disease, but it is still possible.
It's still possible.
The premier was positive. Now remember, he said he tested positive for COVID, but he didn't have corona.
How?
He had corona light. Corona light, send the check. But your own party members are turning against you. Clearly something's not right. Clearly something's not right when the PLP is fighting the PLP.
The PLP is fighting their leader.
Is it enough though? Because the sad reality is, what is our alternative option? The One Bermuda Alliance is a shell of the shell that it used to be. They called the election and they mopped the floor with them. And the reality of that election, I feel like people didn't realize how much of the writing was on the wall with that last election. You can claim, you can party saying that it was a landslide victory, but if you really wanted to take things into consideration, we had a less than a 35% voter turnout. That means out of let's say if we have 40,000 eligible voters, maybe 10,000 of them came out of their homes. And that was more than likely our grandmas and our grandpas.
Well, a lot of people our age that I spoke to, a lot of them voted OBA just because they wanted something different. Because they didn't believe in the PLP that we had growing up, or that our parents had, our grandparents had.
That's because, unfortunately, the PLP now is not the PLP from 1998. I feel that if Dame Jennifer was still in power, she never would have let any of this happen. I feel like if the original founders of the party were, some of them have passed, but I feel like if the original party was still around, they would not have stood for any of this, because the stuff that they're doing right now literally goes against everything that they were fighting for in the first place, because the only people that are suffering right now is us. Not them, us. And see, I'm fine, because here's the thing. I'm not gonna lie. I come from a decent family. My parents took care of me. My family doesn't have to worry about bills and everything like that, but I am in the minority.
A lot of people aren't that lucky.
I'm not saying that.
Don't have a savings, don't know how they're gonna pay rent.
I was lucky enough. Now everybody thinks that my parents, wiped their tails $100 bill. I wish my family was as rich as people said that they were. But I had the luxury of not having to worry about things as a child, because my mother took care of me and my father took care of me. But not everyone has that luxury, because people's parents are struggling. And it's even made me kind of question even starting a family down here, because if it's this difficult, what's the point?
You need to be a millionaire to start a family.
Well, you need to be a millionaire just to afford a
Have
house. Another thing, this pandemic has hurt business owners more than everybody. Mm-hmm. You know how much it costs to start a business in Bermuda?
You're paying taxes before you even make your first dollar.
Bare minimum, it's just $12,000 for the legal fees. If you're even lucky enough to get a loan from the BEDC or the bank. And if you go to the bank's going to be like, okay, well, we'll take your firstborn child as collateral. So I've spoken to a few different business owners. I've spoken to Nick Thompson. I've spoken to Rick Olson. I've spoken to several business owners. And a lot of them have been like, the fact that they even survived is by the grace of whoever they pray to. But some of them have been looking at the door like, and now, with Joe Biden, President of the United States of America, changing the international tax laws, what happens when international business realizes Well, it would be now cheaper because of Biden's new laws to go back to Delaware, which is pretty much a tax haven in the United States. But Biden wants to get all his businesses back. So what happens when international business leaves? Are we stimulating the education system?
Where?
Are we stimulating the retail system? Are we stimulating the restaurant industry?
We're not doing it now. So if they leave, it's definitely not going to happen.
But what happened to Bermudians for Bermudians? Now, the Bremer opened up the doors for international people to come down here and do some work in Bermuda. Now, I am 100% fine with that. Fine with that. Because one, that brings down a myriad of interesting people to the island. Two, that brings money coming in. But three, where are those opportunities for us? Why not, if a young Bermudian opens up a business, why not exempt them from taxes just for the first year? Just for the first year. Mm-hmm. Let them get their ducks in a row. Because even myself as a business owner, Dwayne and I, we shifted the angle of the business several times till we finally found something that worked. And it took time to do that. Most businesses fail within the first 6 to 8 months.
But even, you're talking about starting a new business, existing businesses, why not give them a tax break or something because of the fact that we've been locked inside for the last year, so they're not been able to make the same money that they made the last financial year.
Because the government has to pay off the debt that it put us in. I have yet to hear from anybody where this debt even came from. What did we spend this money on?
Hasn't been on education.
The education system is already in and of itself bloated because it costs $26,000 to $27,000 to send a child to public school. The most expensive private school, which is, I think, either Summersfield or Soltis, correct me if I'm wrong on that, is like $22,000 a year, which is already an exuberant price. But the fact that it costs more to send a kid to public school than private school, something ain't right there. Especially when teachers aren't being paid properly. Where's all this money going?
Teachers buying paper and pencils out of their own paychecks for the students.
Where's this money going? First of all, where did this money even come from? Who do we even owe this money to? Why do I have to pay for your screw-ups? Because our generation has to pay for the sins of our parents, it would seem. Because we didn't accumulate this debt. This debt was all accumulated while everybody in this studio was in elementary school. Because I'm not as young as I'd like to be anymore, but I'm still pretty young. So the question has to be asked, where do we go from here? Where's the plan? Because it seems like the only plan from the government is to tax us out the ass and then lock us up when we don't quarantine.
How they expect us to pay money if we're at home doing nothing? An island full of OnlyFans pages.
The amount of people I have seen make OnlyFans in the last year has been astronomical.
You don't have to pay taxes on it, so it makes sense.
I mean, look, do whatever works, boo-boo. I'm not busting it wide open on the internet for nobody, but if that's what pays the bills, more power to you. But how can you expect young Black Bermudians to want to build a life here, want to start a family here, want to just live here in general? I can't afford a house, can you? Sam, can you afford a house? Desire, can you afford a house? Panya, can you afford a house? Y'all can't see it, but everybody's shaking their heads like no. Most of us can't even afford an apartment. The older generation likes to get on the younger generation. Oh, well, you gotta need to move out of your parents' house. We can't because y'all messed it up. And I'm sorry to be as blunt as possible. I'm sorry. A lot of people watching this might take issue. You might say I'm being ageist. You might say I'm age shaming. You can say whatever you want. But the fact of the matter remains.
You didn't create this problem.
None of this was on
It was
us.
handed to us.
We were born into this mess.
And we're expected to fix it.
And the people that we didn't elect just keep taking the shovel and saying, no, well, the next generation will pay for it. The next generation will pay for it. At least the OBA tried. Okay, at least they tried. Look, I do not have much nice things to say about Premier Dunkley, and I don't have much nice to say because the biggest criticism for those lot is, like I said earlier, they expected all of us to speak in government terms. They said, oh, yeah, here's a 600-page document, read it. But we got St. Regis, we got the airport.
Do we have the airport?
Yes.
Not for another 30 years.
Well, okay, the airport deal it wasn't the perfect deal in the world, but realistically speaking, it was the best deal we were going to get. We did need a new airport. There is a lot of things that are going to come in with that new airport. It's mostly Bermudians working there. Bermudian people will be able to set up shop in the airport, as well as it is going to bring down more planes and bigger planes. So it will overall be better for the island. And I understand that. Which is why I was okay with the airport deal, because I sat there and went through the 600-page document. But the problem is the average person isn't going to do that because they're not going to understand the terms. So what have we seen from the PLP? I'm not trying to compare both parties. I'm just saying over the last 4 years that they have been in power, how have our lives gotten better? Does anybody? Okay, we had a Black Lives Matter protest. Not protest, but we had a Black Lives Matter march. Okay, I mean, I feel like
that was just solidarity there.
I feel like that, I didn't go to that parade.
I didn't either, but we all feel for it because we understand it, but it's not really our issue here. Like the police aren't, they bother us, but we don't have to fear for our lives.
Yeah, like I've yet to get pulled over by the police and feel threatened. But this is the thing. The government won the election every single time they won by saying we are going to fight to make black people's lives better. Now, whether you're white or black watching this, the reality is the bottom tier of the population as far as the economics is concerned is the black and the Portuguese populations. We are on the bottom half of the economic ladder. That's you can discuss whose fault it is. It's not really a fault thing. That's not the point that I'm trying to make. I'm trying to make is the reality is Bermuda gets worse and worse and worse for everybody in that lower 50%. And the unfortunate reality is it's mostly people that look like us that are there. Look, if you're white and you're from a successful family, if you're white and you have a good job, great. This has nothing to do with you. I'm not saying that we need to redistribute wealth. I'm not saying we need to be going after people. I am saying
something has to be done going forward.
Something.
We can't continue.
Carol, I'm concerned because I don't see a plan. I see 29 members of a party silent because I saw my boy Jamal get up there and defend his constituents, defend his family, and defend his people. And I hope nothing bad happens to him. Not bad, like physically bad, but I hope that he doesn't get any repercussions or any political fluff for standing up for what he believes in. And, my dad's Craig Kennedy, leader of the OBA, but that doesn't make me vote for him, and that doesn't make me stop from hearing members of the PLP out, because I was raised to think for myself. So regardless, when I read what he said, I was like, yes. Because he's the first person from all 36 MPs that I've heard from that actually said something that was worth a damn. And then my pops got in there and, did what he does. But I've got to say, Jamal, if you're watching this, I'm extremely proud of you. Not because you opposed the premier, not because you went against your party, but because you stood up for what you believed in. And if everybody did that, this island would not be in the situation that it's in. Mm-hmm. I have seen more protests and demonstrations against this government in the last 6 months than I have in the entire 28 years of my existence on this planet. I have never seen people so up in arms over a black government because the one thing I hear from everybody is this: if this was the OBA, it would have been the 1970s riots all over.
What I've been hearing, if it was the ABA, they wouldn't have shut us down because they would have left something to make money.
I don't think they would have shut the island down. I think they would have closed the airport at first, and I think they would have slowly opened up. Like I said, I can't say. I don't know what my father would have done as premier, but I definitely wouldn't have voted OBA if it was the milkman. Oof. And even with my dad, I tell him all the time, he has to earn my vote. But then the question even needs to be asked, why are we even still using the Westminster system? How much do you know about the Westminster system?
You're going to teach me?
I'm going to teach you? All right, well, I'm going to take you to school. All right, let me break it down for you. This is how the Westminster system works. We the people can't do shit. Nothing. Nada. Zilch.
So do the people have to get into power?
Yes. The only way to change the system is to get a party into power that is okay with changing the system, and then you have to go to the governor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a whole bunch of things. But here's the thing: I really don't think that England is going to stop us from doing anything because everybody's like, oh, we need to go independent. I'm like, no, we don't. No, we don't. If we was to go independent, we should have did it in either the 70s or 1998, but we didn't. And now because of the situation that we're in, it would just make things worse. Mm-hmm. Be that as it may, we have no control over when elections get called. We have no control over what policies get put in. We have no control over what laws are implemented. We have no control over anything. So you want to call it a democratic process, but we don't have a democracy. Really, it's an oligarchy with extra steps because we elect people that represent us, but when they get into the House, they don't represent us. The OBA has one vocal member in the form of my dad. The PLP has one local member in the form of Jamal because it seems like everybody else in the party turned on him as soon as he got up to speak for himself, which is disgusting. It's like everybody's bowls just retracted back into their legs. Yeah, I said it.
Well, how did he not spark that in somebody else?
I hope that it does. I hope that it does.
So what you're saying is that the younger generation needs 36 representatives to go in the next election?
I guarantee you by the time the next election rolls around, 2 new parties would have been formed. I guarantee you. I would bet money on it. A few of them already reached out to me, but I'm not going to tell you who it was, and I'm not going to join it because I made a vow to myself that I would never get involved in politics more than me doing this show. That being said, we have no control over who is chosen as premier. The members vote on that. We don't have no control over who's appointed to cabinet. The government chooses that. We literally can't do anything other than show up to vote for these lot. And then y'all get mad because they do things that you didn't like. Well, guess what? But this is just what happens when you stay home. This is what happens. Now, I've heard people compare politics to sports teams. I've heard a lot of PLP, OBA, and UVP supporters all be like, oh, yeah, well, you always stick with your team no matter what. Why?
If your team is...
That's stupid!
Misplaced loyalties. For what? Just for the name?
Even the BIU is going against the government right now. The BIU, who was pretty much single-handedly responsible for every single PLP victory since 1998. The BIU is going against these lot. Oh, man. And Chris Ferber don't even like me. He called me Shay Cannoneer. Shay Cannoneer. I'm like, bro, if you're going to talk about me on TV, get my name right. Keep it out your mouth. But there's no plan. If there is a plan, it's not being communicated. I watched the premier get up in front of that protest, in front of all those people, and I saw him smirk, I saw him smile, and I saw him cross his arms and just disregard everything that came out of his voters' mouths.
It doesn't matter anymore. He's
Doesn't matter.
empowered. He doesn't have to listen.
So what do we do?
Make him listen.
How do we do that? I'm gonna leave before I get incriminated. Check y'all later.